Hello, my name is Julia Streets and welcome to the podcast series StreetsTalksTo. And in each episode, I interview leaders from some of the most influential firms, bodies and initiatives in the financial services industry. On each episode, we explore what's at the very forefront of innovation and change. We think about the challenges facing clients and the industry at large, and we uncover the opportunities that exist both today and as we look ahead, particularly as we all navigate these extraordinary times. We hope you enjoy the series, which you can find on all good podcast channels, and all the episodes are listed on our website, streetsconsulting.com. You can find these episodes using the hashtag StreetsTalksTo, and of course, we are all over social media. Thank you for listening, and welcome to Streets Talks to YEO Messaging. YEO Messaging is an ultra-secure private messaging platform that connects businesses with people, assuring trust, compliance, and providing total control. It's an innovative alternative to the market-leading messenger options because it assures delivery and confirms the identity of the viewer. Doing this, it uses its patented continuous facial recognition. We're going to get into much more detail about how that works, but ultimately, it makes it impossible for someone else to read your messages. Think geofencing, think burn after reading, and just think about the application at a time where we're all very concerned about our privacy. Now, to get into the topic, I'm delighted today to be joined by two guests, co-founders of YEO Messaging. Firstly, Alan Jones. Now, Alan Jones is a tech entrepreneur and a business leader. He's had 4 successful company exits under his belt. Former founder and CEO of a Virgin Hot 100 company called Shuttle Technology Group, and he was awarded the Fast Track 100 Innovation Award. His experience of launching and scaling innovative businesses is why he's so passionate about YEO Messaging, but also why they have a bright future ahead. Alan, wonderful you could join us. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, great to be here, Julia. Thank you.
So with Alan today is the co-founder Sarah Norford-Jones. Now, she's an experienced creative business leader, more than 10 years of experience because she graduated from the Parsons New School for Design with a BA in Design Management and then went on to a stellar career in PR, marketing and advertising. She formed her own ad agency. And as you can imagine, her creative experience and mindset is incredibly core to the direction of the user experience of YEO Messaging. So Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Pleasure. Now, I can't wait to get into this because I think this is really, really exciting. But we always start the discussion with our guests by not so much thinking about what you're doing. I mean, I talked there about geofencing. I talked about burn after reading. I talked about, facial recognition. We will get into that later on. But I really want to explore with you today about why this matters. What is it that keeps your clients awake at night? What is it about that's going on in the industry right now that makes you really relevant? So, Alan, tell us about what are those big driving concerns that exist today?
Control of data, worries about cybercrime, about if it's hit, when it will hit, and what to do at that point. That trust in the world where we are disseminated, working from home, how do they control their corporate data? How do they control the employees and the access to their data to eliminate any form of, as I said earlier, cybercrime? It's a massive worry. It isn't about if, it's when it will hit.
And it is interesting at the moment, isn't it? Because I've interviewed so many people, particularly throughout 2020, who talk about, one of the impacts of COVID has been that the amount of cybersecurity investment has gone up because they've had to react to the increase of security breaches. So it's really fascinating to hear you talk about the cyber angle on that. And then other things that came out really about trust and privacy and control. For sure. Sarah, can I bring you in here? Is there anything you sort of add, build on that when you've been thinking about the design of the product and also thinking about, what the industry needs right now?
Yeah, I mean, I read an interesting stat the other day, which said actually 97% of firms are realizing the benefit in allocating resources to data privacy. So just to kind of add to your point that it is a rife topic at the moment. And it's, as Alan said, it's not if it happens, it's when it happens. So with what we're doing with YEO is really trying to ensure that the control is in the hands of the sender, which is something that people are trying to do. A lot of other messaging platforms are looking at what happens when it's being transferred from person to person, the message, but no one's really looking at it when it reaches the device. So having the control aspect at that level is something that we're really looking to achieve.
So let's get into what is YEO messaging right now. And Anna, I'm going to come to you first of all, which is, when we talk about these big concerns around security, privacy, control, exactly as Sarah was also saying, is, what are you doing to address that? What really does make you different?
The main point about YEO messaging is we authenticate not only the sender, but the recipient throughout the message. So with common platforms, they focus on security and encryption, etc. What they fail to recognize is that it's all about trust, because you hit send and you hope for the best. You are totally reliant on trusting the recipient of the data. So at YEO, what we have done is we authenticate every user, which eliminates any room for imposters or any phishing exercises, etc. But we also go another step and we authenticate the recipient at all stages of the communication. So while you're reading the message, we are using facial recognition at all times.
And it is really interesting you're saying there about, the importance of authenticating, not only the sender, but the recipient as well. And I know there have been some really quite deep-seated concerns about security of other platforms. And I use one, WhatsApp, which of course we talk about a lot. I know a lot of financial services organizations are quite deeply concerned about the security around that. Alan, any views on that?
I think that's a very good point, Julia. If you look at financial services and use of platforms like WhatsApp, I think we had an incident at the end of last year where Morgan Stanley actually went to the extreme of firing personnel for using WhatsApp for company business. The fact is many of these social messaging platforms are designed for consumer use, and they're designed to be able to harvest as much data from you as possible in order to pay and commercialize the application. And therefore, from their very nature, can never be secure for business. The data is being absorbed by this massive engine and regurgitated in the form of advertising and other commercial endeavors by people like WhatsApp. So they will never be fit for purpose as far as a business application is concerned. And Sarah,
I was going to say, I have a feeling that Sarah's itching to come in here. So Sarah, let's turn to you.
Yeah, so it's just something that we as a company really pride ourselves on. The way that we market ourselves is very different. We charge a small fee for our pro and business users, which is our business model, which was also very different to how others out there are doing it, as Alan was mentioning. Our users' data is not ours. It's not what we use to monetize off of.
And I think that's a really important point worth clarifying, because a lot of people, exactly as you say, are in it for, it's a bit like saying, if it's free, then you are the product. Simply, if the product is free, you are the product. And there are some deep-seated concerns, particularly in many industries. I mean, we've talked there about financial services, but my mind immediately goes into other sectors. And I know you're working across other sectors. So thinking, for example, healthcare, we're all now communicating with doctors over, channels. Here we are on Zoom recording this. The privacy element of that. So just talk to us about other sectors you're working in as well.
Well, Julia, it's really great that you raised the healthcare market. For us, doctors today are overwhelmed not only with the COVID-19 scenario, but day to day, by the very nature of what they do, they are busy and dedicated. So much so that messaging is becoming a part of their everyday life. but their fear of any form of conflict with GDPR, for instance, is huge. The very fact that any messaging platform today enables them to display information for patients and sending messages to other doctors that will sit on a phone and be liable to be seen by anyone could be catastrophic to their surgery or their careers, actually.
That whole point you make there, Alan, about, this is deeply personal. This is about people's own privacy, their own records, but also the liability. My mind automatically starts thinking, maybe it's because I'm a fintech kind of girl, which is going to the world of, insurtech, and then even out into other sectors as well. Sarah, I'd love to hear some more use cases.
Yeah, so obviously you mentioned the healthcare and insurance, which is a huge area for us as well. When you start thinking about what happens during a cyber crisis or a breach of, personal data, but then, in the world of legal, communicating with your clients, or even, lawyer to lawyer, and even in design or any kind of area that's high IP, reliant on IP. So design, defense. We're in discussions at the moment with defense and cybersecurity on a government level, and also with the Metropolitan Police. And one of the really exciting use cases that we've got going on right now, which is a pilot we're running with a global insurance company, and we're building a cyber crime communication platform for them. So Alan, I don't know if you want to step in and give a bit more detail on that one.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Basically, what we're looking at is crisis management. And when it comes to crisis management, I believe IBM have published recently that it takes over 200 days to recover from a crisis at corporate level. Now, as I said earlier, it's not a case of if, it's when you will get hit with a cyber attack, basically. And time really is money. Unfortunately for the insurance companies, it's often their money. And so any form of improvement in communication, which saves days on assembling the breach coordination, improves the overall efficiency of managing, reacting to, and resolving a cyber attack, is worth absolutely millions to the insurance companies. Now, what YEO is able to do is to preload the communications channel so it manages the information in the most efficient fashion and saving numerous days on every recovery cycle, which is quite interesting from that point of view.
So what's really fascinating for me hearing you talk about this is on one application level, it's about having secure comms, day-to-day secure comms, enterprise-wide, essentially. So that rather than using alternative social channels like the WhatsApps or indeed any of the others that exist out there, is that actually you're guaranteeing security right the way through that. But also what you're saying is that this is about workflow processes. And you mentioned about sort of preloading workflow processes, which is really interesting because that's the time when people are anticipating the moment of pressure that they can be taking time, cost, and risk out of that process, which is fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. What you're really doing is you are preloading a group chat which assembles all of the key stakeholders at any point of time. And then by applying AI, you're able to make sure you have the right people at the right place at the right time. And everything is a cloud service. So any impact on the corporate topology is irrelevant. You're able to communicate fast, efficiently, and through an authenticated channel. Because, of course, leaks, as far as PR and relationships, are absolutely critical as well at these times.
So really, really fascinating. Sarah, again, I have a feeling you're dying to come in here. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, there's always the idea that within the company, you've got to manage it well. But it's also, as Alan alluded to, if things leak, it's also the customers. It's that lack of the trust from customers or the people, the parties that are involved, that maybe it's, you've lost all of your users' personal data. That leaks to the press. We've just had one recently around, I can't remember which aviation company it was, but they've had a huge data cyber breach. And it's allowing people to communicate quickly and efficiently, but also managing the trust level of their users as well at the same time.
So important. It's so important. Now, this is a question that I ask all our guests. It is a slightly weird one, so bear with me as I ask it. But it is incredibly important. And we've mentioned already GDPR. And I ask all our guests, if there were a piece of regulation that you're particularly paying attention to, think of it like your favorite piece of regulation, which is the compelling reason why people should work with you. What would that be? Alan, let me come to you first of all. Tell me about your favorite piece of regulation.
Well, you've already said it, Julia. It is GDPR. What GDPR does is it emphasizes the fact that the data that you hold as a corporation is not yours. It belongs to the people, the originator. And you need to be very careful on how you handle it and respect it. And if you do not, then the European Commission, through the GDPR process, will punish you. And at last, people are having to stand up and be counted. So I'm 100% behind GDPR.
And if I'm not mistaken, we talk about the balance sheet, you talk about the accountability, the balance sheet liability. We're talking about, is it 5 to 8% of turnover is the potential fine that you could get for a breach, which is just, for some of these large organizations, Sarah, you were talking about the aviation industry, these are significant sums of money which could be offset. So Sarah, how about you? Same question to you. Talk to us about your favorite piece of regulation.
Well, I guess mine's not really a regulation as such. I'm very interested in keeping an eye on the going back to work. Obviously, with COVID, we're all working remotely. We're working from home. And, from June, we're going to start seeing a lot more people going back to the office and back to work. So my area that I'm really excited to watch is how do we maintain compliance? How are we going to maintain the privacy and communicating as a team in that new hybrid work model?
And it couldn't be more pressing right now as well. Listen, I hope to all our listeners who are tuned into StreetsTalksTo, you're enjoying this conversation as much as I have. It's great to have a company on that's not only is right at the very zeitgeist of change, as Sarah was saying about COVID, and also thinking about cybersecurity and GDPR. So I hope you're enjoying it. It's StreetsTalksTo YEO Messaging. You can find all our episodes on streetsconsulting.com and of course all over social media. Just use the hashtag StreetsTalksTo. So StreetsTalksTo YEO Messaging. I'm joined by Alan Jones and Sarah Jones, co-founders of YEO Messaging. And what I'd love to do is we really go into the final phases of our conversation today. Let's look ahead a little. Let's think about what the path ahead holds for YEO Messaging and also for your clients as well. Alan, can I come to you first of all?
I'm very excited, Julia. Next month, we will be launching YEO as a consumer product. From the moment that the product launches, we will not only be assuring everybody of who they're talking to on a messaging platform, but we will be eliminating fraudsters on phishing exercises, and we will help to protect children by ensuring that they always know who they're speaking to online. YEO enables you at all times to authenticate not only the sender, but the recipient. So that will put control back into all of our hands, and it will enforce trust, which is something that personally I'm looking forward to.
Wonderful. And Sarah, so talk to us, you've got your thoughts as well as you. I mean, I was saying earlier that you're thinking about the design journey, you're thinking about the user experience, you're thinking about the product and the business model. What does the road ahead hold for you?
Well, for me, my challenge is, I guess it's not really a challenge. It's my what I would like to do with YEO is really build a community of like-minded, privacy-conscious individuals, and which is one of the reasons why we're actually crowdfunding. We're crowdfunding on Seeders at the moment to raise our seed investment round, but also to really start building that community. We are a messaging platform. We want users to be able to message and privately message with one another. So that's kind of the reason why we're doing that, to start building our community of YEO users.
Well, there couldn't be a more exciting time, not only to have you on. I know you're right in the middle of your fundraise at the moment, so thank you for taking the time to talk to us today, but also to hear about the industry dynamics, the customer dynamics, and also about what you're doing to solve those. So, Alan, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your thoughts about YEO Messaging in the future.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And Sarah, thank you again for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So if you want to know where to find YEO Messaging, go to the website yeomessaging.com, Twitter at YEO Messaging, and YEO, by the way, is YEO, which of course is your eye only. YEO Messaging, LinkedIn, and also on Instagram. And we wish you every success with the fundraise, and thank you again for being with us. And to all our listeners, to Streets Talks 2, I've been Julia Streets. Tune in for further episodes soon. Thanks for listening.
This episode of Streets Talks 2 was produced by me, Kieran Yates, on behalf of Streets Consulting Limited. Streets Consulting is a business development, marketing, communications consultancy that's focused on helping fintechs from the smallest startup companies to some of the world's largest global organisations. Everybody's trying to innovate and everybody's trying to grow. You can find this episode on streetsconsulting.com and using the hashtag StreetsTalksTo. We can be found on LinkedIn and on Twitter at StreetsConsult. Thanks for listening.